Here we have a Babylonian number. As we talked about before, the symbol upright wedge represents 1. A sideways wedge represents 10. So first we need to decide how many places do we have here, because there's a big space here, so I'm trying to think that it has 2 places, and the first place has symbol 2 here, and the second place has a symbol 24. So if it has 2 places, the lowest place has a place value 1, so I have 24 ones, and the second place has a value 60, so we got 2 60s, and by adding them together we get 144. So this number could represent 144. But what if there's a 0 in the end? So Babylonians never had a symbol for 0, but it's possible that there's a 0 in the end. So if we think of this as 3 places adding a 0 in the end, and this will be our lowest place, which has value 1. So we got 0 ones plus 24 of 60s plus the third place 2 of 60 squares, and adding together we will get 8,640. So there's different ways to look at this number depending on if there's a 0 in the end or possibly there's a 0 in the middle. So it was difficult for them to try to describe the numbers like that. And to understand the number, they have to rely on the context, if there's a 0 in the end or not. Well, there's another way to look at this number. This could even represent a fraction. So similar to modern number system, we have decimals. For example, if we have 23.71, on the right side of the decimal point, this 7 represents 7/10. And we know tenths, 1/10, that's actually 1/10. So this 7 means 7 times 1/10. The next place is hundredths, and that is 1/100th times 100. Because of the base 10, it's a base 10 system. So similar to this idea, if I consider this lowest place as a decimal, and this is sort of like similar, instead of having 1/10, it's not tenths, we have 60ths. So we have 1/60. And this represents 1. And so we got, and so I get rid of that. Suppose we have 2 places, but the lowest place, instead of representing ones, I'm gonna think of it as a fraction. So this represents 1/60, and this represents how many ones. And if we have more, then will be 60, 60. So similar to the modern number system. So let's multiply each number by its place value. So we have 24 in the lowest place times 1/60 plus how many ones? 2 ones. So we multiply and add them together. We get 2/24/60, which can be reduced to 2 2/3. So the same thing with the same symbols. We have different ways to interpret this number because of the place values are not very clear. So modern people, we use to relieve the ambiguity, we're going to use some modern symbols to make it clear. So for example, for this one, I'm going to just, if I wanted it to mean 2 places, and I will use a comma to separate them. 2, 24. We need to remember that Babylonians never had a commas to separate them, so that's why it was confusing. Or if I want this to mean 3 decimal places, I will do 2, 24, and a 0. So I use comma to separate the places. But if I wanted to mean actually fractions, so I have to use a new symbol, semicolon. So I will have 2 and semicolon instead of comma to represent them. So that tells me this actually is a fraction. The place value is 1/60, and this has a place value 1. But if it's all commas, and then you would just start with 1, place value 1/60, 60 squared, and so on. So with this, we can look at another example right here. We're going to use the modern way, because the Babylonian way is really confusing. So if we are given a number 25, 0, 3, semicolon 30, and we try to decide what this number is. So follow what we just talked about, and between semicolon is kind of like the decimal point we're using right now. So this is the fraction. This place value is 1/60, and these will represent 1s, 60s, and 60 squared. So we're going to do 25 times 60 squared plus 0 times 60 plus 3 1s, 3 times 1, plus 30 times 1/60. So we add all these together, and this represents 90,000, 3 and 3 and 1/2. So we reduce 30/60 to 1/2. So this is how we convert a Babylonian number. We use the modern notation, and to represent a Babylonian number to a base 60 number to a base 10 number. So this one has base 60, and this one has base 10.